Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. Today we are finally taking a look at my Formula 1 predictions for the 2021 season. Now, the testing in Bahrain did not help at all. It was all very topsy-turvy, and it's very difficult to place some of these teams, especially based on the performances we saw in the desert. So I'm going to do my best, but answering some of the questions from testing is nigh on impossible. Are Mercedes falling behind Red Bull? How are Ferrari doing? What's up with the midfield? It seems to be all over the place. Was Decker actually a replicant at the end of Blade Runner? You can't answer any of these questions, except the Decker one. Of course he's a replicant. Read the book. But for Formula 1, we're going to go through team by team what I think. And I think this year, I'm going to get it 100% spot on. Guaranteed. Let's begin.
Welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport.
Haas, 10th, with Nikita Mazepin last in 20th place and Mick Schumacher in 18th. Now, again, as I always do, if there's driver swaps throughout the season, I'll do my best to sort of work out between them where they would have finished. We'll do something. It's easier doing it in the video, the reaction video at the end of the year, all the way in December. It's a long time to wait when you really think about it. But we'll start with Haas. Now, Haas have been on a downward trend for a few years. And obviously the best way to combat that is get two completely brand new drivers who've never driven in Formula 1 before. Because, you know, that inexperience really gives you an edge in the midfield battle. I think this could be the year that Haas finally finish right at the back, which is not an achievement to be proud of. I think Mick Schumacher has shown he's a talented driver. And I think he'll do fairly okay on his first year. I think he'll get a few decent points finishes here and there. As for Nikita Mazepin, forget it. Just forget what he said. Give him a chance. He's having enough stress not racing under the Russian flag because of a doping program in athletics that has nothing to do with motorsport whatsoever. And we all know that Nikita Mazepin is actually Russian. So that means nothing. I don't think he's going to have a very good year. I don't think he's a very talented driver. He's an okay driver at Formula 2 level. He was never outstanding. He never really stood out from the crowd. There's a lot of drivers I would have chosen over Nikita Mazepin, but he obviously has the big bank balance. That will help Haas pay their expenses. But I think he will probably get a points finish somewhere, but I can see him finishing the year 20th with 1 or 2 points. Nothing spectacular, and I think he'll struggle to hold on to his seat for next year, especially with all the bad PR. Williams, 9th, with Nicholas Latifi, 19th, and George Russell, 16th. I think Williams will make progress. They were slightly moving towards the midfield last year. That being said, it's not great for a historic racing team like Williams to finish last with 0 points, and George Russell only got his first points because he was driving for Mercedes at one race. It's going to be another tough year for them, but I think they are going to move much more into that tight midfield battle, and I think there will be points there for them. I'm guessing Latifi will get maybe a 4 or 5 points, and George Russell, I think he'll manage to pull off some pretty damn good results. Especially, I'm predicting at least one 6th or 7th place as his best result, but for Williams that'll be a massive upgrade to what they've been doing over the last few years. Alfa Romeo 8th, with Antonio Giovinazzi 17th and Kimi Raikkonen 13th. Antonio Giovinazzi definitely improved last year. He even managed to equal Kimi Raikkonen's points. But I think he's going to struggle with a tighter midfield. And even though Alfa looked better in testing, I'm not buying how great this Ferrari engine upgrade is. And I think Alfa Romeo are going to struggle again. That being said, I think last year was a bad year for Kimi Raikkonen. He's capable of better, and his experience will help him this year, especially with 23 races. It's a long season. And I think Kimi Raikkonen will score the odd points finish here or there just to keep his head above water. Antonio Giovinazzi is far too crash prone. He makes mistakes far too often, and I think he's going to have a really tough year, and this is probably his last year in Formula 1 in my opinion. That being said, I like both drivers, and hopefully a marquee name like Alfa Romeo will do better than I think. Alpine 7th with Esteban Ocon 15th and Fernando Alonso 11th. This is an interesting year for Alpine because they're technically a new brand in Formula 1. They have a rallying history. They've even won the first World Rally Championship. But they've not been a Formula 1 manufacturer before. Although they are technically just Renault, I suppose. Fernando Alonso coming back. How long is it going to take for him to get used to the car? He reckons about 5 or 6 races. I reckon about the midway point. It's been, 3 years since he drove a Formula 1 car? Other than a young driver's test last year. It's going to be tough for him to get back into it, but he is one of the class talents. One of the best drivers of the last 20 years. He's A grade. He's been unlucky in his career at times. He's been an annoying knack at other times. And he does drag the morale of a team down, especially when he gets all whiny when results aren't going his way. But he is talented. He will score points. He'll do well in qualifying. He is going to keep Alpine right in that tight midfield. Esteban Ocon, I was disappointed last year. Maybe he'll do better this year, but I think it's going to be another downward spiral for him. I can see this being his last year in Formula 1 as well. I think Alpine, whatever you want to call them, have a lot of young talented drivers in the pipeline, and I think there's a lot of pressures on Esteban Ocon to perform. He got a good podium last year, but he wasn't on the pace at every race, and I think that's going to continue, and I think he's going to struggle. 6th, AlphaTauri, with Yuki Tsunoda 14th and Pierre Gasly 9th. I definitely think that Pierre Gasly winning a race last year was a flash-in-the-pan fluke. A lot of things happened for that to happen, and I'm happy for him. And he's a good driver. I think he'll get a podium, maybe 2 podiums this year. But he is still a midfield driver in a midfield team. And even though AlphaTauri looked good in testing, I think that that's not the whole story there. I'm expecting a decent top 10 finish for Gasly, and hopefully at some point he'll get recalled to that Red Bull team and maybe do better than he did before and challenge for more wins. As for Yuki Tsunoda, he really was the star story of testing. He had a great result in the last test to finish 2nd behind Max Verstappen. Things happened that led to it. If they were playing funny with DRS and that. And from Formula 2, he is a great talent. He gets wins, he fights for points. He's not always consistent. And he's also going to be learning, obviously, in his first year. But I think he'll probably be the best of the debutants. But I think he's still going to be in 14th. Scoring decent points here and there. But I think he's going to get caught up in a few crashes. Maybe a few incidents that aren't his fault. Overall, though, I think he's a great talent for the future. And I think there's a real chance he could be Japan's best ever race driver so far. There could be others in the future. But for now, we'll settle for Yuki Tsunoda in 14th. Aston Martin 5th, with Lance Stroll 12th and Sebastian Vettel in 8th. This is a tough one to call as well because testing did not go their way. They had a few problems and Vettel probably didn't get the laps he really needed to. That being said, Aston Martin are probably more focused on Vettel than Ferrari were, and this could be a little bit of a resurgence for him. Hopefully he'll stop spinning, hopefully he'll stop crashing into his teammate, hopefully he'll get a few good results here and there. I'm not expecting race wins from Aston Martin, but hopefully they can grab a podium or 2. Hopefully Vettel can match Sergio Perez, his racing point performances at least, at some point in the year. But I think 8th place for Vettel is a fair enough result on Aston Martin's first real season in the sport. Well, the first is like 1960 anyway. As for Lance Stroll, he really improved last year. He kind of shook off that daddy's boy image I kind of think he had. Maybe no one else did, it was just me. But I do think that he is at best a midfield driver. He'll score points. He might shock you with a podium here or podium there. But I'm not expecting massively great improvement from Lance Stroll again this year. I expect him to be a average midfield runner. So I'm going 12 for Lance Stroll. McLaren 4th, with Daniel Ricciardo in 6th and Lando Norris in 10th. Again, McLaren are a very hard team to place on the grid. I think that they did incredibly well with Renault engines, and if the Mercedes engine is better, they should do better than that. But it's hard to see them breaking that top 3, and it could just be top of the midfield. Daniel Ricciardo is a great driver. I expect him to get podiums this year, and I think the McLaren will be good enough to do that. And he will definitely, I think, break into that top 6. And this will be his best year in a while, I think. I think he's made a good move moving from Renault, because I think McLaren is a step up. But I think it's going to be a tough acclimatising year for him. That's going to stop him challenging for top 3 teams, which we'll get to in a second. Lando Norris is a very great young talent. This is only his 3rd year, 4th year in Formula 1. It feels like he's been there a long time, and he really hasn't. You know, and again, he's broken his podium duck. He could do that again this year. But I'm going to play it safe and say Lando Norris in 10th. He had the majority of the bad luck last year. He had a few breakdowns from points paying positions. But he is a really good driver. I think he's a bright talent for the future. If McLaren can get back up to the top pecking order, the best team in the field, Lando Norris is a good enough driver to lead that team into a championship winning position, as long as the team can get there. I don't think that'll be this year, but I think Lando Norris is definitely one to watch in the future. Ferrari 3rd, and Carlos Sainz Jr. 7th, with Charles Leclerc 5th. Ferrari really did me dirty last year. I did not expect how far they'd fall after their fuel management issues from 2019. It really hit the Ferrari-powered cars, and especially the main team, who had their worst year since something like 1986. It was ridiculously bad. They say they've made improvements. They looked okay in testing. I'm not saying they're right back up at the top, but as long as they can get back into 3rd, it's a start. And they have 2 great drivers in Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz Jr. Both of them will score decent points this year, and I think Ferrari will have a bit of a resurgence. I'm kind of counting on it once again. I made this mistake last year. I'm willing to admit this could be a mistake again. But I think Carlos Sainz will get podiums. Charles Leclerc might sneak a win. That's my prediction for Ferrari this year. I really want Carlos Sainz to win a race. I think he is a fantastic racing driver. He's proved it at every team he's been at. He's moved up from Toro Rosso to Renault to McLaren and performed at each one. Now he's at Ferrari. Hopefully they can give him a car to perform at the top, because he really deserves it. Charles Leclerc, I think, pegged down, he is a future champion. Whether that's with Ferrari or not, it depends on how they can get back up to the top. Thing is though, Ferrari do always tend to rise to the top again. They have bad years, they have bad periods every now and again, but they tend to always be at the top at some point. And if Charles Leclerc sticks with it and sticks with Ferrari, I'm sure he'll be on that top step eventually. Red Bull 2nd, with Sergio Perez 3rd and Max Verstappen 2nd. It hurts me to say it, because in testing it looks like Red Bull have the advantage. And I'm sure we've been in this position before after testing. I'm going to play it boring and say that Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes are nailed on for another double. But I think it's going to be closer this year. I still think Hamilton's going to take it with 3 or 4 races to spare. And with even more races on the calendar, that could be 5 or 6. Mercedes sandbag, we know that, and they play mind games. But I'm going to be hopeful. Red Bull look closer. Sergio Perez, I'm shocked he's there. I gave him a eulogy at the last Formula 1 review of 2020 because I thought he was done. I didn't think it would be a racy. I did not see Red Bull getting rid of Alexander Albon. He is a step up from Albon. Although Albon being younger, you know, this is a risk. It's a risk for short-term success. And I do think Sergio Perez is good enough to pay that off. Hopefully he'll win a couple more races and be much better backup to Max Verstappen than Albon was. Verstappen, I think pound for pound, is the greatest driver on the grid right now, including Sir Hamilton. But he does get involved in far too many first lap incidents. and he needs to sort that out. If Red Bull have the advantage at the start of the year, he needs to take advantage of that and get those wins early. I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but I think Red Bull have closed the gap at least. And we'll have to wait and see just how much they've closed that gap by. And if they're going to take the win and we get a title fight for a change, all the better for Formula 1, because I love watching a championship go down to the wire. And it really does help the drama of the thing, doesn't it? So yeah, I'm going second and third for the Red Bull pair. And a much closer championship, maybe. I don't know. It's really hard to tell this year. With Mercedes, you can never know for sure until you get to the racing. But fingers crossed for Red Bull. And Mercedes first, with Valtteri Bottas fourth and Lewis Hamilton first. I know it's the most boring answer I can give to the question of who's going to be champion, but it's hard to bet against Mercedes. They have been absolutely dominant. This is the most dominant a team has been ever in Formula 1. This is more dominant than Schumacher and Ferrari. I think this will be Bottas's last year. They have to put George Russell in that seat eventually or risk losing him to someone else. So Bottas, this may be his farewell party. I do think he'll drop behind the Red Bulls. I know I said last year he'll drop behind Verstappen. Verstappen wasn't that far off him. There's like one or two mistakes Verstappen made during the year would have put him above Bottas, which would have been a fantastic result. I like Bottas, but he's not a great driver. He's consistent at best, and at times he does make errors. He was a safe choice to keep Lewis Hamilton happy. He will play second fiddle happily in a way Nico Rosberg never would. So he will score points, he'll probably get a win or two, but he's going to finish fourth. Lewis Hamilton will be champion again, but if he beats Max Verstappen in a title fight, I will take back everything I've said of him, because it's the biggest thing against him really is that he's won 7 championships, but he's never really had to fight for it. Mercedes have been so clear of everyone else that it's at best a two-way fight for 6 of his championships. Hamilton, he's a great driver. I'm sure he'll take his records and all his championships and ride off into the sunset. Whether that's the end of this year, it's hard to say. He'll probably stick around for another couple of years, but he does risk tarnishing his legacy if he does start losing. If Max Verstappen beats him this year, it's going to draw questions of, well, was it the car or him? You can answer that with a title fight. If he beats Max Verstappen and the Mercedes is slightly off him, it will be impressive. If it's just another 10, 11, 12 wins a season, championship already sealed in a cabinet halfway, it's been what it has for the last 8 years. It's been a long 8 years for Formula 1. And we can every year we pipe it up as, this is the year that someone's going to stop Mercedes. And it never really happens. But this could be the year. But I'm going to play it safe and say Hamilton and Mercedes anyway. Because I'm not a risk taker, and I think at the end of the year, inevitability will rise to the top again. So they were my predictions. Do you agree or do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know your predictions. It'd be fun when I do my reaction video in December if I can go through some of yours and point out how wrong you were and maybe why you were so wrong. It kicks off in Bahrain once again. I feel like we've been there a lot recently, but I am really looking forward to it. So remember to subscribe. Massive thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I was aiming for 250 by the time the Formula 1 Championship started. I think we're up to like 269 or something as I'm recording this. That's insane. I think by the time the season started last year, I had like 30. So this channel's grown a lot. I'm going to keep making videos, so it's a good time to subscribe and let me know your feelings. Shout abuse. I don't mind. You think I'm harsh on Hamilton? Tell me. Everyone else already has. But just sit back, relax and watch the Formula 1 this weekend and have a good one.